did I do?
I'm gonna break your bitch, I'm gonna break your shit.
What did I do?
I'm gonna break your
What did I do? What did I do?
I'm gonna break
What did I do? Why are you so mad?
I'm gonna break your
Why are you so mad? Why are you so mad? Why are you so mad?
Oh.
Why? Why are you so mad?
Oh.
Why are you threatening me? I'm just trying to get to work. I'm just trying to get to work.
Let me get out of here.
That's what I thought.
They get that ranch. Did she climb through the window? She didn't climb through the window. Did she climb through the window? She climbed through the window.
Okay, so my name is SVO, SVZ, SBZ, Ella's daughter, anything you want to call me. My baby daddy got a new girl, so I'm about to fight. I'm about to fight. I got my Vaseline. Let me show you. I done took off my earrings. No, in fact, I don't want new earrings. Pearls. That bitch can pull them pearls out. She can't even spell pearls. Okay?
Keys in. Give me my keys. Can I see his dang go? Give me his dang on jacket. You wrong as hell for that shit. You wrong. What did you do? Give me my dang. No, you're not doing this shit. Give me my keys. Give me my no. Give me my keys. Give me my keys. All my stuff all out. Give me my keys. That is my car. Give my keys. Give my keys. Give it to me now. Stop. Damn it. How you gonna do this with your damn baby? You got a problem because I'm questioning you about coming in late? You got a problem because I'm questioning your ass? I'm taking care of you. Give me my damn keys back. Get out. Man, you better give me my damn keys back. Get out. Oh, this motherfucker, I swear.
What we doing, Mike?
What you mean is what we
wow,
doing? What you doing here?
What am I doing? I live here. This is my house. What do you mean?
You're not supposed to be at home right now.
I saw you on my doorbell camera.
Yes, I live here.
See, you crazy. Are you serious? This what we doing? This really what we doing?
So you upset?
You're supposed to be at work right now, Mike.
I got off early.
You just started a new
now
job.
You care about me being at work. You didn't care the whole 6 months.
You ain't have a work. Exactly. I tried to help you, but I filled out your resume.
Trying to find a job, and she was keeping me company.
Are you serious?
Yes.
I did the reason you got the job now is because of me, because I did your resume. Are you serious?
No, that doesn't matter.
You're wilding right now.
She was here for me. You weren't. Every time I would get here and wait for you, you were too busy. You would be working all day. You wouldn't even cook. You weren't cleaning. What?
I was working 12-hour shifts to take care of you.
I myself for 12 hours. You didn't even check up on me.
And you wouldn't do nothing.
She was here for me. She was here for me, not you.
12 hours in a day.
She was here. She was the one that was keeping me company. She was the one that was calling, texting me, and checking on me, and making sure I was good to go while you was at work all day.
You know good,
yes.
bro. Shakira, are you serious right
know
now?
Good. You know good.
I've been taking care of you.
How long was I supposed to wait around for you?
What? 6 months? How long?
What I tell you about my motherfucking vape?
Bitch. Well, I don't know, bitch.
Who child is this?
Yeah, cause you're running like a little pussy, bitch! Stand up, stand up, stand up. Stand up, stand up. Yeah, who running? Stand up, who running? Yeah, now who running? You. Stand up in the face. You can keep throwing it all you want, nigga. Stand up in the face. You're the one's a pussy. You're running like a little bitch, nigga.
Tired of arguing with a 6-year-old.
You really don't want to wear that? It look ugly. Well, that's too fucking bad. How about that? You're wearing it. And you can get your ass whooped. Fix it before I beat your ass. Look at you. And you want to talk shit.
Look at you.
There.
You already got that robo.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about me.
Get the fuck out.
Give me that fucking hoodie out. Take that fucking hoodie out, bitch.
Ain't no way in hell.
I got this video right here for your mama, cause I'm finna sing. Y'all get up and move.
I'm what, bro?
You bitch.
I'm telling your mama, bro.
What does it do for us? It brings us from chaos into order. It brings order to chaos. That's what culture does. Culture is powerful. European understands that. It binds us to each other. It gives us identity. It gives us a reason for surviving. And then it tells us who we should live for and who we should die for if we have to. Culture is an energy source for thriving. And it gives us a sense of security. It also puts us into a system of accountability. We are accountable to our ancestors. Now, with you looking at all of that, and it's a template for living, then think about it. And it is a petri dish. So that African culture becomes a petri dish, it produces Africans. It cultivates Africans. And no other culture can make that statement. You hear me? No other culture can produce and cultivate Africans. Only African culture can do that. If we look at culture like that and see it as a means by which a people protect themselves, then we could understand culture as the immune system of a people. Think of people as an organism, and culture is that immune system, right? Okay. Now what does the immune system do? The immune system, you have the T cells, you've got the lymphocytes, which become the warriors, right? Their job is to recognize the antigen. An antigen is a foreign body which threatens the health of the whole. And that's where you get that seek and destroy. All right?
That's right.
Because their job is to neutralize or eliminate in any way that disease, that poison, those antigens, those things that work against the health of the whole. Okay? Now, we look at culture as that.
Welcome back to Breakdown Friday. Joseph Ward, Professor Carl Tone Jones, Super Pat, Patrick Irvin, and we're diving back into the topic of culture. You saw the videos. You saw the opening video. I mean, we have a degenerate culture. We have a very, very, very degenerate culture. And I want to take a look at our generation. Because we're the parents right now. We're the ones producing children right now. A good bit of us have children who are teenagers and in their 20s, and some younger. But I want to look at our generation because we're the ones that's supposed to be in charge of the children right now. And clearly we're failing. So why is our generation continuing to pass down the same degenerate culture that was passed down to us? What was the improvement? Was there an improvement? If not, why wasn't it? If so, can you show the improvement? So I want to start with you, Pat, because we're the young bulls over here. So then we're gonna get to UPC. But Pat, why do you think our generation, and before I PC your face, man. Your face as the video, man. Like, I'm loving it. But Pat, why didn't our generation improve?
I think there are a couple different things at work here. I like the analogy of the immune system that Dr. Murabani used. Because the immune system doesn't just it doesn't just seek and destroy, right?
Right.
It seeks to preserve life, the life of the host. And at times it can be confused into attacking the host itself. And most of the time when people die from a virus, they're not actually dying from the infection itself. They're dying from the immune response.
Right.
And then you have these interesting things called retroviruses, which change the way the DNA interacts, and they become a part of
The virus.
your DNA code,
Yep.
and they exist and carry on.
Yep.
And I think the complexity of that perfectly describes what we got going on. A lot of our behaviors and things like that, I would say, can be viewed as retroviruses. Things that have gotten into the culture and have become a part of the culture so much so that they're no longer recognized as being different from the culture. They are the culture. The negative attributes, you know what I'm saying? When we were growing up, grandmothers and whatnots and families in whole used to take so much pride in having well-mannered, well-behaved kids. You know what I'm saying? And now, well, the clip you just showed, people have no shame whatsoever putting their badass kids on full display.
Putting their foul behavior and their children's foul behavior.
Right. 100% cool with it. So I think again, one, I think our parents protected us from too much. They kept too much from us. And not just our parents. I'm 40. So we're talking about the children of the civil rights movement, right?
Yep.
The civil rights children kept too much from their children, who kept too much from us. And I think that's the start of everything. Like, and then there was just a lack of wanting to hold generations accountable. And then my generation, which I largely consider to be the worst generation in the history of Black America, we want to be friends with our kids more than we want to be parents and friends with each other. That shit just don't make no damn sense. And you just got a recipe for disaster. I'm trying to keep it brief because this is something PC cooks about for a while. So I don't want to get too deep into it. And Joe, me and you go back and forth about this too. I know this is going to be a long and interesting conversation. So I'm going to just stop it right there.
Go ahead, PC. Alley.
Bruh. You know, it'd be different if we had a counterbalance to this. But it seems like this type of dysfunction is becoming normal in regards to how we the things we safeguard. I think about when Monique had asked sisters to not wear bonnets and slippers in the airport, and the response she got from it. I think about when we tell young brothers to not wear their pants hanging off their behinds, and the response we typically get from them. When we start to talk about the ratchetness of our culture and the professionals, I think about the professional response to that. I think about when Meg Thee Stallion was interviewing Maxine Waters, and when the topic of WAP came up, and Meg fully expected to be reprimanded for that, but instead she was endorsed by somebody who we consider a community elder. I think about, so I think about all those different things. And I think that, and it goes back to what Patrick said, we used to have pride. We used to have civic pride, not just in our community, but in our families. Our family name used to mean something. You coming out of this house used to mean something. And we've lost a lot of that. I think Black people have finally been worn down to the nub in regards to what we've become. So this was always the plan, I think, when slavery, the institution of slavery was supposed to be ended, right? With the Emancipation Proclamation and the culmination of the Civil War. This was always the plan, to destabilize the Black family to the point where it's so dysfunctional it would never stand a chance to combat racism, white supremacy. And then, I mean, you think about it like this, the only time in history Black people were left alone during Reconstruction in this country. Even after Reconstruction, you saw a spur of Black communities thriving all over this country. But once it was shown that if we leave these Negroes alone, they'll end up competing against the white dominance that, you know, this country was built on. I think it showed that they recognized that they couldn't leave us alone, because then, you know, there's no system in place for us in this particular paradigm to share power. So you saw the constant war against Black families and the destabilization of Black families. And, you know, you saw it with the economic war. You saw it with, you know, the end of segregation. Those economic wars that we look to, but we don't really understand how they siphon money out of the Black community and poured it back to the white community. Then we look at the economic wars and the employment wars, where prior to the desegregation, vagrancy laws, which was one of the things that helped build the prison industrial complex. Then you look at the drug wars that took place in our community. First it was heroin in the 60s and the 70s. And then when that didn't take place, it was crack cocaine, which was a devastating blow that we still have not recovered from. So currently what we're seeing right now, the third generation descendants of the crack cocaine era. We're seeing the lack of family structure. So as Patrick was saying, you got parents who want to be friends with their children. And a lot of that is because they never matured past being children themselves. So you have children raising children. And what do children do? If I like Fruit Loops and you like Fruit Loops, we both like Fruit Loops. You know, if I like cartoons and you ratchet television shows and you like it, and we see this in this pattern, and it's become normalized. And now it's sponsored. The entertainment pushes it forward, and we see it in the streets. And we're also dealing with that on top of, you know, a collapsing society. American society is collapsing all around us. So, you know, we're seeing a lot of it. So I'm gonna park it right there because there's so much we can get into.
Oh yeah.
So, and I know we're going to, so I'm gonna park it right there for now.
Oh yeah. Hey, so I believe we didn't have a chance because, like Pat saying, you believe we probably the worst generation here. And you know, all the factors that PC you adding to it that both of you all had. I believe we didn't have a chance. And why I believe that is, so we're old enough to have real grandparents, but we're young enough to be part of the new bullshit. So we had a chance to see Black America with more structure, but we were too young to see or understand that Black America was declining at the same time, that we're seeing the last vestiges of any type of structure that Black people have ever had. And if you compare it to the generations before, they probably would say it's trash, right? But like you said, we're the crack babies. We're the generation that our parents were not our parents specifically, but the generational parents before us were addicted to crack. The generational parents before us were, hell, third generation single parents, according to that documentary that was off from out of New Jersey. So third generation single parents, our parents were the ones who were addicted to crack. So we are the crack babies. We're dealing with all the fallout from the civil rights movement, the Black Power movements, everything that has happened in the 70s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, the fallout from all of that, the destabilization of Black America, moving into the 90s, where we're born in the 80s, we're growing up in the 90s, mass incarceration. So we're still dealing with crack and we're still dealing with mass incarceration, all of that at the same time. And all the various other factors that we can pour into it. I don't think we had a chance. The destruction, I believe, was masked. Not when I think about it, I think it was masked from us. We didn't understand. We're too young, so we didn't know that. Okay, everything is falling apart around us. It's just not falling apart in such a rapid pace that you can just point and see like, dang, this. Now, some areas it is, but as a whole, it's not. But as we get older, we're starting to see the decline more and more and more. We're starting to see the stagnation more and more and more. Starting to see things ain't getting better. And then we, as adults, now that we can fully understand what's going on around us, we like, hold up. Was the generation before us, were things before us like we were always taught, was it really better? Was it really better? Now, the way we grew up was similar. It looked similar to, it wasn't exactly the same, but it looked similar to our parents and generations before us. Now, the way we grew up, it's a stark difference from how our children, like the generation of children now and the generation under them growing up, they're growing up in social media era. Our upbringing looked more like our parents and our grandparents. It resembled it. So, we couldn't see how far apart we were and how messed up we were. We can see it now. It's all on full display now. So I think we didn't have a chance and we didn't understand what was going on around us. We couldn't really see. That's what I believe.
Well, yeah, we couldn't see, and we couldn't see because we weren't taught to see. Like previous and that's why I said like too much was kept from us. Mm-hmm. Previous generations were raised to deal with the world as it is. Our generation was the first generation to really kind of be instructed to move through the world the way we wish it to be.
Right.
And the counter, the problem with that was when we were growing up, like you said, we had a counterbalance, to use PC's term, of the older generations that were moving the way it was. This is how it is.
Right.
So we were taught, move how you wish it to be. But then we look at our parents, our grandparents, great-grandparents, and they were moving the way it was. And then we grow up and we raise our kids. The world is whatever you want it to be. And that's just a bold-faced lie. And there's no counterbalance for that. The world is not whatever you wish it to be. So now you got these kids out here talking about racism doesn't exist because I don't believe in it.
Right.
But that's the core. That's the core of a mentality that's been ingrained into this dysfunctional belief that the world is whatever you want it to be. And even now that gets in the way because now we're faced with a situation where we are trying to tell people, no, this is what it is. But they don't know how to see what it is. All they know how to see is what they want.
Yeah. The lies, the deception, the holding back information, the narratives, the like. For example, I'm watching we were damaged, man. We were damaged by the generation before us, and a lot of people don't want to admit that, but it happened. That's why we're damaging the generation under us. But I'm watching an episode of Paternity Court because I'm watching all type of stuff to get ready for this show. So I'm watching an episode of Paternity Court. In summary, the man finds out that his wife, well, the daughter isn't his, The daughter isn't the man that they thought it was. So some other dude, she was sleeping with 2-3 dudes at one time. So the daughter isn't his. The son isn't his. The son ain't even a son. The son is the cousin. The son is the cousin of the wife. And because the cousin's son mother's died. So the son is the cousin. And she told the man that that was his child. So the son cousin comes out to find out that he don't know who his mother or his father is, and they've been lying to him his whole life about who his parents are. And the daughter, same thing with her. She been lied to her whole life about who her father is. How the hell they supposed to function properly after finding some stuff out like that? They're in their mid-20s. How they supposed to function after that? How they supposed to pick up the pieces after finding out that who you thought was your family ain't your family? This is the destruction that's been passed down. And this young lady is a mother about to be, she was engaged, about to be married in a couple of weeks. And this is the stuff that she's finding out about herself, on top of not really knowing who her father was her whole life. And then you find all this out, and then you got to go back and be a parent and try to be a wife. You're passing down more stuff.
Yeah.
We were engineered to be crazy.
There's no rhyme or reason to how we function and how we move. And everybody freestyles now. It's like literally trying to morph together. It's like it would be simpler to build an airplane by a tornado going through a junkyard than what we're trying to do right now in terms of compiling culture. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody wants to do what feels good. And here's the thing. We've created, not only through this, the confusion, we have a bunch of entitled people who feel as though nobody should be able to tell me what to do. But then we'll go off and say society doesn't protect us. Well, you can't be protected unless you are insulated by a culture. And I think that that's what Mama Marimba was talking about in regards to one of the things with culture being the immune system. And I think Patrick broke it down beautifully in terms of how, you know, if you can trick your immune system can be that which attacks you, or it can shut down altogether. You know, cancer is when your immune system is tricked. HIV is when your immune system no longer exists, no longer works. And we're somewhere in the middle of that right now. And we have like, you know, RNA sequences going on within our immune systems that are reprogramming the DNA of what culture is for Black people. I think and it's not good. Yeah, it's not good. This is a destructive culture. This is the death culture. This is a culture that doesn't proliferate. And this is a culture that's deviant. This is a culture that prides itself in some of the most derelict things that you can imagine. It prides itself in being shy. I mean, these are things that people have been priding themselves in. You know, oh, I'm shady. You know, oh, I'll ghost people. Oh, you know, I'm petty. I mean, those are not things that you build a productive culture off of. But yet, and still, people are proud to announce that that's part of their character. You know, and when we started looking at the videos that you showed, and I was just sitting back because I've actually seen this stuff in person. I've seen every example you've shown, I've seen in person. So to say, especially the classrooms, I was in those classrooms. So to say that that's not, and we're going back like, you know, me in education, you're going back over 25 years of seeing those things. So to see all of that unwind and see what it's become, and then to know that nowadays you have to be careful about how you approach children because it might cost you your life if you approach them in a way. I was just literally driving through traffic in Philadelphia on Roosevelt Boulevard, and I saw these cars speeding around. and one car cut the other car off, like catty corner, cut him off so he couldn't drive, and got out the car. And his brother, I just saw him arguing. The next thing you know, I noticed his brother has a gun in his head. And he's pointing at the other driver and letting them know, man, I will air you out. And I'm sitting there looking at this is literally two cars in front of me. And I'm saying, wow, this is a society spiraling out of control. This is not too different from, one of those Mad Max movies, post-apocalyptic. The apocalypse hasn't happened yet, but people are responding like we're in the post-apocalyptic part of it. You know what I mean? So it's like watching an episode of The Walking Dead, right? And we know that when they put shows out like that it's life imitating art, but sometimes it's art imitating life. And
have either of you seen the movie They Clone Tyrone on Netflix?
No, no.
I've been meaning to, but no, I haven't seen it yet.
So you want me to spoil it or?
Go ahead. I don't care. Spoil this personally.
Spoiler alert for all the viewers. If you haven't seen it, you finna get a little summary. So basically, because PC, you talking about culture, like we're talking about culture is supposed to protect us, and the virus has reprogrammed us. The virus being white supremacy, and it has reprogrammed us. So, the viral analogy is beautiful. I love it from both of you all adding on it because the process of reverse transcriptase is literally to change the DNA of the cell, the host cell, and use the RNA to rewire and reconfigure the DNA of the host cell. Then the virus pops out and continues to do that. So white supremacy literally reconfigured our whole everything about us, our whole mentality, our whole wiring. We have been totally reconfigured. So now we are operating as the zombies. Like you say, these movies not talking about real zombies. These movies talk about brainless, mindless people who just follow stuff. That's what it's talking about. But the same thing at the movie, They Clone Tyrone, a pimp, a prostitute, and a drug dealer. They stumble like some Scooby-Doo stuff. They stumble on to this conspiracy or stumble on this operation to basically the white people are controlling black people. They're using the music, they're using the food, they are literally creating niggas. So they're cloning Tyrone. So Tyrone is the main character, the guy from John Boyega. Yeah, John Boyega is character Tyrone. Totally. So the whole object is to take these archetypes and keep recreating these archetypes. Don't we see that today? Don't we already know the music is reprogrammed us and got us acting crazy? Don't we already know the food is bad and got us acting crazy? Don't we already see the archetypes that'll keep being repeated over and over, the Negro archetypes that we talk about the nigga mindset all the time. The movie was talking about that. That was just the latest example in the cinema of that. But it's like we have been cloned. And if culture is supposed to protect us, then I don't know if we as a whole fully understand culture, because we think Black culture is anything that we find fun and celebratory worthy, rather than something to protect us from not only ourselves, but from outside forces that come to break us down. But we've been so reprogrammed that we don't even understand culture and what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to help build us up. Our culture is not supposed to be something that's tearing us down, like you both beautifully articulated. Not only has the cells been reprogrammed, but now the immune system has turned on us.
Yeah, well, when you look at that part about in the part you said about culture being celebratory, I think we get that part. I mean, and I think that's an important part of culture. But the problem is when operating the culture, you have people who run and control the culture. You have people who are administrators of the culture, people who are the shepherds of the culture. These are the adults, the elders, the leaders of those communities. And not charismatic leaders, but these are just the leaders, the people who are the ones who are providing the provision, the production, the protection, the housing, the structure, the cultural traditions, the ones who practice and put those. You don't have to actually know their names; you just see it being done. Those are the adult features of culture. Children, by circumstance, are the recipients of the culture, and they learn it, the traditions through and they become fun through birthdays, celebratory processes, rites of passages, things of that nature, achievements. But see, we, because as a people, we're still dealing with the rest of development. We don't have, we're, as of right now, we've regressed in terms of being guardians of culture. We've regressed in terms of being the ones who initiate the culture. In fact, we're afraid to initiate culture because we're afraid of the rebellion that the younger children are going to have towards the culture because they've already budded. But if you know anything, children always buck up against the system. Children always test boundaries. And and then the power of those boundaries to be reinforced speaks to the strength of your culture. And this is why I say, our culture, if we want to use the immune system analysis, our culture has been stricken with HIV. Our culture has been stricken with an immunodeficiency disorder that doesn't stand up to anything that tests those boundaries. And in the strengthening that is we have to strengthen the immune system, or we have to tear down the host and provide another body. And that's the thing I think we're at right now, because there are those who have become older who only see it one way in terms of reinvesting into something that's dead. HIV, once it becomes full-blown AIDS, there's no immune system left. You have to destroy that host. You can provide it, you can medicate it, but the virus is still there. We have to rebuild something in terms of culture. And that might mean we have to discard those who are tied to that dead host. And we have to be okay with that. And that's the one thing we haven't been. We would rather go extinct than to create a new baby that can be birthed and matured into the thing that culture needs to be, that will preserve our people going forward. So we're struck right now because so many of us don't want to let go. But it's like if you have a part of your body that's diseased, it needs to be amputated so that the rest of your body can live. If you can't do without that limb, then the rest of the body will surely deteriorate and die. We have to be strong enough to cut that shit off. We haven't proven to be strong enough, old enough, grown enough, and mature enough to know, yes, it might be painful, but it's going to be necessary if we're going to move forward.
I think I position it another way. I like the immune system analogy because it fits with the intricacies of our situation. But I think there are multiple ways of looking at it. I don't necessarily share the belief of Dr. Ani that culture is there to protect us. I think culture is there to sustain us, to provide homeostasis, provide balance. Culture is there to keep whatever it is that you've got going on right now going on. And I think that's the end of it, because, and it's in response to the environment. So if whatever you're doing right now, you're living, you're surviving, and you're in this environment, your culture will reinforce whatever those traits are. If your culture is not manually controlled by you, and our culture is not, our culture is pretty much developing on autopilot. The programming was put in by somebody else, and then they just pressed the play button and let it play out. And I say that because you take my sergeant major used to tell an interesting story, right, about his family, and I think he was lying because I've heard several people tell this story, but it still serves the purpose, right? His mother, whenever they made turkeys on Thanksgiving, they would cut the turkey in half. You've
Hold
heard
up,
this
time.
story, right?
Time out before you go. Somebody told you that he made this up.
No, I think he made. I think I think he heard it from somebody else and he tried to take credit for it.
Oh yeah, he did. This is a popular story.
Yeah. But you guys know where I'm going, right?
Yep.
The mother
Keep going.
cuts
Just
the
for the now.
turkey
Go ahead.
in half. For those that don't know, the story goes, on Thanksgiving, mother takes a turkey, cuts it in half. The child asks, "Why are you cutting the turkey in half?" Mother says, "I don't know." So the child continues to ask. The mother goes to her mother, asks, "Hey, why did you teach me to cut the turkey in half?" She didn't know. So they went to the oldest living relative they had and asked them, "Hey, why do we cut the turkey in half?" And they said, "Oh, because when I was a child, we didn't have a pan big enough to fit a whole turkey. So we cut it in half." And that's just what we've been doing ever since. To me, that's culture.
Yeah.
It's not protecting you, it's sustaining whatever it was that got you through whatever you needed to get through to survive. So when we look at Black culture, there was a lot of pride and a lot of other things happening in the all the way up until the 60s. We won't even go listen to all the decades. All the way up until the 60s, even the 70s and the 80s. And the 90s, I still consider the 90s the golden era of black engagement in America. We were true influencers of American culture in the 90s in a way that we never have been before or since. But you look at what Black culture was celebrated for in the 90s as far as the national view of it, right? It was built on Black exploitation of the 80s. Niggas, pimps, hoes, being prone to violence, being about that action, being ready for smoke, all of those things, being able to dance, being good at sex, all of these things were things that we were celebrated for. And for the first time, I say in decades, in the 90s, Black people didn't feel the pressure of needing to prove anything to anybody. Like that cultural pressure we've always had, we got to show these white folk this, and we got a white folk that, and twice as good this, and twice. You stopped hearing a lot of that talk in the 90s. I'm not saying it died out. I'm saying you stopped hearing a lot of it. It wasn't as prevalent. And so what ended up happening, in my opinion, is a trajectory was set. If we continue in this direction, life is sweet and it keeps getting sweeter. And nobody, I think the elders had the foresight, but they didn't want to rain on the parade and tell them, look, if you keep going down this path, it's going to take you here. So there was no correction. And I think that's where the elders step in. Culture will continue you down whatever path is working. Elders are supposed to have the foresight because they have the past to be able to see where this is going and to head off the younger generations and to say, hey, look, nah, we got to get back to this. Well, why do we got to get back to that? Well, the reason we started doing this is because of this. That's not needed no more. But if you keep doing this, it's going to take us here. So the recalibration piece, again, they kept too much from us. And then those of us that learned better, we saw an opportunity to be happier and live freer, and we took it. Instead of coming back to the collective and saying, no, let's do this, because this is bad. Now, there were some, but there weren't enough.
Right.
And so I think, like, for me, that view of culture works better with my worldview than the view that culture is supposed to protect us, because I don't like you're constantly having to adjust your culture for the times you're in. It's just in a natural environment when everything's happening in equilibrium, those things kind of happen automatically. But we're not in a natural environment. There's nothing natural about Black people in America. And that's the first thing that we got to learn to accept. We can't just, everything we do has to be deliberate, because our origin story is manufactured. We're not a natural we're not a natural group. So we got to stop like trying to move like we have a natural origin story. We don't have a land and an environment that's native to us that we can go back to and recalibrate. So we've got to create some sort of weird amalgamation of different places that fits who we want to be. And then we got to sit in it long enough for it to become familiar. But like PC said, that's a lot of hard work that nobody wants to do.
Yeah. So I can, as you explain in yours, I can see both views as far as culture protecting, culture creating homeostasis. But the thought is homeostasis has to be created and has to be maintained. So protection has to be a part of maintaining homeostasis. So I'm thinking, listening to what you're saying, I'm thinking it goes into what she was saying, in my opinion.
Yeah. So to tie it into where I agree with her, because I said I have a different view.
Right. But they go together though.
Yeah, where it agrees with her is I do think there is a protection element to culture, but I think it goes both ways. I think people have to protect their culture, and their culture protects them.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we're not protecting our children.
We ain't protecting shit. You heard what PC said.
Yeah. But we can see from the clips. But looking at those clips, like that reminded me of some of the children that I saw growing up. Like, the children who always had the silver teeth. There was always it was funny, like those children, like it's a stereotype, but those we saw it. Those children, their first words was bitch and motherfucker and shit.
Well, hold on, Joe.
I've seen people teach their children those words.
Exactly. That's what I'm getting at.
And that's what I was finna say. Correction. We are protecting. We just protecting the wrong shit.
We're protecting the promoting bullshit.
Those people that you just talked about, and the people that make videos like this. I guarantee you, if you go to the comment section, they're being covered.
But it's like our children don't have a chance. We didn't have a chance. And if we didn't have a chance, and we're worse than our parents, our children don't have a chance. So, because Pat, you always talk about we have to get to the youth. But shit, do we really need to be talking to our youth the way we behaving? Like, what are we gonna like? And I'm not saying this is absolute, because we know that there are a good number of Black people who about upliftment and positivity, but there's too many of us that are not. And so if they do get to the kids, is more bullshit going to continue to be passed down? Because
yes,
right, that's where I'm at. That's
not
where
well.
I'm
You
at. So,
notice I've been saying we got to get to the youth for years.
yeah,
And PC and I was laughing about it because every time I say it, the age gets lower.
yeah, but
And
but
now
it's
I'm
like,
at the point where look,
You have to be prenatal.
yeah, right. Like we gotta start putting speakers next to the babies in utero. Like
but what
pregnant women
messages
need to strap something to their belly.
what messages are going to be given to them though? Who's giving the messages? Who's the adults that are being trusted to give messages? Because look at leadership for real. Okay.
Well, I think that it comes with institutions because it's like what Patrick was saying, because this is a conversation we've been having. We've all had this conversation for years about culture. Culture is something that protects you, but you have to protect the culture. It's like if you have water in a river and you need to build a wall up, the wall protects you, but you have to keep reinforcing the wall.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? There and acknowledge that there's going to have to be a separation. It doesn't even have to be permanent, but a separation in which the critical mass that we keep talking about, and it can start very small, and the critical mass just keeps growing, and it resonates. But it has to be something where the institution is created, an institution that promotes the culture that we're talking about. And then those of us who talk about it have to insulate that. And we have to do so, not necessarily like, any broad announcement. It just has to be one of those things that resonates. And that's some of the things, and that's the hard work. Because there was a time when I thought, very naive, I might add, wow, if we spread this information out, and we educate our people, we can turn shit around in 5 years.
We all thought that.
Yeah, like I said, very naive.
In our younger years.
Yeah. We were all there. And then the more we thought about it, the smaller that goal became. Well, maybe we won't get to everybody, but we'll get to this. Maybe we can have our own cities. Maybe we can do this. Then it came down to, well, if we could just get a damn building, and start with a house or something. But it might just have to. It might just have to start with a building. I mean, so there are places where the culture is winning, but it doesn't benefit the system that we currently reside in for those cultures to become viral, like the negative stuff that we saw on the clips that were played earlier. Because you think about it, Black people in America are the only true competition in white supremacy. But you got to keep Black people destabilized. And the fastest way to do that, and people are going to hate me for saying this, is you got to corrupt our women. Because the women's are the bringers of culture. They're the first teachers. I believe it was Elijah Muhammad that said that, people can rise no higher than the moral compass of his women or the morality of his women. And so we have to get our women to see value in the culture that we're trying to build and move forward. Because the women are the first teachers, especially, Joe, you spoke on something before, like the crew of 86, where the young ladies were talking about she was a third generation teenage mother. Well, we're 2-3 more generations since then. You know what I'm saying? So at some point, that cycle has to change, because we can't keep having a place where if you want brothers to be leaders, then nobody is supposed to listen to the leaders. Then who the fuck are we leading?
Hey.
And then the brothers that are coming out of this, these young brothers don't see themselves as young men. They see themselves as boys, and that they become baby boys. They never grow up.
We did that breakdown. We did that
Yeah.
breakdown. But
Yeah.
like you made me think about 2 years ago, a 12-year-old came into our clinic. She came in, she got pregnant at 11 and had her twins at 12. Yes, you heard me right. Got pregnant at 11, had her twins at 12. And her mother was so excited to be a grandma. She was excited to be a grandmother. She was excited that her 12-year-old was a mother with twins. What are we doing with that? What are we doing with that? Like we're dropping the ball so far from our kids. Like we handing off Super Bowl caliber winning trash culture. Like that's not a position for a 12-year-old to be in. That's not something for you to be excited about. Like look at all of the not all of, but look at a lot of the outfits that a lot of the young people went to the prom with this shit. Like and went to the prom in lingerie. Look at India Ari calling out the Essence Awards because the Essence turned to a whole festival. Gangster and horror culture, gangster culture, horror culture, drug dealing and drug using culture. You know what's funny to me? To hear the rappers that we grew up listening to complaining about today's rappers rapping about using drugs as if that shit wasn't inevitable. So y'all rapped about selling drugs and you thought that just because you rap about selling drugs, it was just gonna stay there. You didn't think it might get worse. And then you got a nerve to criticize the young folk for rapping about using drugs when y'all rapped about selling drugs and you still do.
Well, he rapped about selling drugs. Who are you selling drugs to? You selling drugs to the ones using it now. So
and they parents. The generation before us, the generation like we grew up seeing people use drugs and listening to people rap about selling drugs. And it became a part of the subculture of Black culture to sell drugs, like the trap music. It's been glorified. So what you wouldn't expect to have a generation of people who might use the drugs.
But you see the again in the algorithm, right? The programming works. In the programming is to maintain the destabilization.
I got that written down.
It's to maintain the destabilization and the further destabilization and the profit off of it. I mean, these young people right now profit off of degenerate behavior. So if we don't have a counterbalance to that, we can't even tell them what the fuck to do because they're not going to listen to us. And then we've created a society and a culture in which if you don't have means, nobody's going to respect the words that come out of your mouth.
Bruh.
Well, I do agree with, and this is one, like, I think with what Dr. Ani said, I agree strongly with when she said, culture gives you the reason to live. What are you living for? Purpose. What are you willing to die for? And right now we see our culture has given us selfish motives. Dudes are willing to die for pussy. Women are willing to die for themselves.
Money.
Right. And the kids are basically just accessories for when you want a living, breathing baby doll for a lot of people. Until that living, breathing baby doll gets big enough where it's not cute no more. In which case, then you just put the kid out, the person out, and let the rest of society deal with the terrorists you just created.
Bruh.
Yeah, I mean, the scary part about that is that end result that you just spoke of, Pat, because it's like, if you ever, like we talked about another movie earlier, you ever see Escape from New York with Kurt Russell? That's an old movie that was done like the 70s.
Yeah, I seen
and then
that.
Escape from Escape from LA, which was
I ain't see
like
that one.
30 years later, right? Same story. But that's the society you create. When you have that, a bunch of, you create a hooligan society with hooligans running the inner circles and intertwining. And you got to dip and dodge between this particular predator you're creating, this particular predator. And it's like almost, it's crazy because I was pissed when Hillary Clinton said that shit. But now it's come to fruition that we've turned our community has actually turned into a situation where it's predatory. And everybody is looking for a lick. The young dudes on the street is looking for a lick. The young girls on the street is looking for a lick. Everybody's looking for a lick. Somebody, like, the whole essence of a culture is to promote life. Like, especially a culture that we're talking about. This culture is talking about snuffing life, taking the life out of you. I mean, the things that we like, joy. It's because you consider it soft to seek joy. You consider it soft to seek love. You consider soft to seek kindness, to produce kindness, to present somebody with kindness. Then a fucking con artist walks up and utilizes your kindness for weakness. And then you turn warm hearts cold. And that's what we've been producing. And so the quandary that we're in right now speaks to, first, before we seek a solution, we have to actually identify what the issues and the problems and concerns are. Because I don't think people really do a well enough job of that. We like to just jump to the finish line and talk about, well, what's the solutions? What's the solutions? What's the fucking problem?
Well,
because we haven't fully analyzed all of it.
Well, yeah, I see comments like that a lot of people saying, well, we know what the issues is, so what are the solutions? And my argument is, I don't think enough of us know what the solution is. And you as an individual may know or may not know, or may even think you know. But the bulk of us don't know, because if we did, wouldn't we have better results?
But that's another part of the faulty programming, right? Because people that really problem solve, and intelligence has nothing to do with this. People that really like problem solving is what they do. Even if they think they know the answer right now, the very first thing they do is make sure that they have an adequate understanding of the problem. This is something like, again, my training is in Lean Six Sigma, which is basically an error correction, problem finding, solving. And it doesn't matter how much you know about a system. Before you engage in any metric that's involved with solving a problem, you do your homework. You make sure that you understand the problem from all angles. And that doesn't happen without talking to the subject matter experts, the decision makers, and the people that interact with the particular system that's causing problems on a daily basis. Too many of us want to just jump to the solution because we've heard so many of us give a shallow or superficial analysis of what the problem actually is, leading to this false bravado or this false sense of self-assurance that we know what it is. Well, you're in a room full of strangers. So even if you do know what the problem is, how do you know everybody else does? Before any meaningful conversation about solutions can be had, and I'm in that group too. When I was younger in my 20s, I used to say that too. We spend too much time talking about the problems. We need to just get to the solutions. No, the problem was we didn't spend enough time really analyzing the problem. We just talked about it, and we talked about it from the same angle, and then we never got the solutions. Right. So the whole conversation was wrong.
The problem is white supremacy. The solution is not having white supremacy, replacing it with a system of justice or a better system, something that's not in the supremacy realm. But we can say that, but how do you do that? And nobody knows how to do that. And that's one thing we've said this in the past. Got to be honest with ourselves. Nobody knows how to replace the system of white supremacy. You want to know how we know that nobody know how to do it? Because ain't nobody ever done it. Nobody. We don't know what we're doing. We know what we want to do, but we don't know how to do it. So we're essentially trying to figure this thing out as we go. Let's stop trying to act like we're subject matter experts at replacing or ending any system of oppression when we're not. We're professional at being victims. We're professional at blowing smoke. We're professional at, being combative against each other, but replacing the system, we're not. So let's start lying to ourselves or coming off of lying to other people like we really know what we're doing when we don't. If you do, show me the results.
A good show people need to check out. If you want to talk about what it looks like when the system of white supremacy dies, they need to check out Why the Last Man.
Say it again.
Why the Last Man. Why the Last Man is a television show in which, for some strange reason, every male animal on the planet, everything had a Y chromosome, died, with the exception of one man and like his pet monkey or some shit. But the system collapsed all around him, and it was all women running. So that's practically in regards to the end of white supremacy. But the functionality of the system, nobody really understood what all the men actually did. So the power grid went down, the transportation grid went down, the water filtration systems all failed. And they had to figure out a way to try to get it all back up to par. And the struggle was the anarchy that took place within these groups of women that were trying to control and maintain and replace the system. But they never considered they would actually have to replace the system because they were so used to relying on the system. And so many of us are so used to relying on this very system we claim that we want to replace that we haven't even taken the minute thinking or understanding of what the fuck we would actually have to do to replace any aspect of it.
We say it, but do we really, like you're saying, do we really understand when Neely Fuller say replace the system of white supremacy? You got to understand what that totally means. Like, you got to be able to run a society.
Yeah. You got to have the will, and you have to be willing to make mistakes, because that's what leadership comes with. It's not always about taking all the credit when shit goes right. It's about holding up and being accountable when shit goes wrong. And more things go wrong than go right, because 100 things can go wrong until the one thing you need to go right goes right. And those are the things that people don't understand when they have these dialogues about what needs to be done. And the only thing people want to talk about is the academic system and and money, not economics, but money. They don't want to talk about economics, because that entails something far too sophisticated for most people to even understand how money works.
Yeah, man. The programming works. Like, it really works, because our generation has definitely failed our children. Definitely failed our children. And we can see that our children's generation, especially the ones who are parents, because they're young parents, so they're not doing a good job either. I mean, we've lived up to the stereotypes. The stereotypes have became prophecies for us. Like, we reinforce the behaviors that was put out there a long time ago, and now we reinforce the behaviors and even created even more stereotypes that we live up to. But then we're mad at white people for, like, the crazy stuff when black people get mad at white people for emulating the negative stereotypes. They can have that. Let them have that. Let them have the negative stereotypes. How about we start creating negative stereotypes? How about we stop being the crazy ones out there?
Well, we it's so funny because the black experience as we know it has been curated and cultivated by white hands. and we've become so attached to it that we get mad when those same white hands start to show us what they really meant for us to do.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? And it's the most interesting. It's really interesting when you stop to really look at it. You know what I'm saying? Like, we won't get mad at a white person for going to a HBCU and getting a high quality education that was supposed to be meant for black people. But we'll get mad at a white girl for putting cornrows in her head and twerking on camera.
Bruh.
Man, I was thinking about that the other day.
When you said that, Pat, I thought about two examples, right? Like the characters. Like Amos and Andy started off as two white folk in blackface.
Yeah.
Babs was a fucking minstrel, modern day minstrel.
Yep.
And now look at what you see on the street.
Yep.
We saw it.
Like you said, Baps was just supposed to be a movie. Who I think Kevin Samuels used to say that Baps was supposed to just be a movie. Now it's like a horror culture. Horror culture is prevalent. It's almost like if you're a black woman and you're not exhibiting horror qualities, then you're not a real black woman. If you're a black dude and you're not displaying gangster or Pookie Ray Ray culture or qualities, then you're not a black.
You're selling out.
It's the culture. They're like, man, they trying to impede in on the culture. Like us degrading ourselves and tearing ourselves down. It's not the culture, but unfortunately, it has become the culture because the virus has made it our culture. That's a good analogy for white supremacy. The virus. We're gonna start using it. Yeah, man. I think. Go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I'm looking at the clock, so I think you're trying to wrap us up. I'm good. Go ahead.
Nah, I was finna say. It sounded like we didn't beat this horse down. That's what I was finna say. So I don't think we need to kind of continue to drag this on. I think we made some solid points on this, and another solid conversation on this. But if you do have a closing remark, go ahead and do your thing.
Bang bang.
There you go. Yeah. Bang bang. Got to do better. What can we do better? Can we do better?
Let us know in the comments below.
Right. Let us know in the comments below. Can we do better? And if so, what do we need to do better? Hey, Joseph Ward, Professor Carl Tone Jones, Patrick Irvin. Hey, if you look at the videos that I have on the compensatory code, there's a lot of information on what we're supposed to do. And if you watch the videos of me reviewing Powernomics, there's a lot of information on what we can do to be better. But we also want your ideas as well. Put them in the comments. We out of here.